right, this is for quiz 5.2, an overview of Europe. Um, Europe is the third largest continent. It is the most densely populated continent. There are countries, specific individual countries that are more densely populated than countries in Europe, but altogether, Europe is more densely populated than any other continent on the earth. But Europe is decreasing in population, and that's because they've already hit industrialization. They've already um, become to that great world power, and now they are having less kids per family, so their population is decreasing, which is interesting. um, I want to show you guys this overview that is on Apex. So we've got Europe has four major mountain ranges. We've got the Alps right here, the Pyrenees, the Urals, and the Caucasus. Okay, or Caucasus, I don't know how to pronounce it. Doesn't matter. So those are the four main mountain ranges in Europe. So there are lots of rivers, and you can see a lot of these rivers stretch across the continents right here from one side to the other. So it really makes trade really easily because you don't have to go around. You can just send a ship up through the river, which is nice. There are several large rivers that do go into this Caspian Sea right here. So we've got, the Volga comes through, largest river, so which is this one right here. And go to the next one, if it'll let me. Okay, so Europe is basically a peninsula because you have this long thing just sticks out from the main body of land. It would be the largest peninsula in the world, but they kind of call it a peninsula. Europe is largely surrounded by the sea. As you could tell, there is water all around most of it. The major seas that border we've got the North Sea up here, Mediterranean Sea right here, the Black Sea, Baltic Sea. Oh, sorry, that was the Caspian right there. Those are the major ones, okay? So Mediterranean is the most important, I think. With trade and history, it's just the most important. Black Sea right here, Baltic up north, and then the North Sea, of course, on the north side. Okay, and you've got all of these kind of breaks in between lands. So we've got this one right here. We've got this one right here, which is super important. It's a canal that was actually built in so that they don't have to go all the way around Africa. They can just go through right there. And then we have right there so they can get out to the ocean and to the Americas. So that's really awesome that they have those breaks there. Okay, so Europe is largely known for its social democracy. It has some countries that, compared to the rest of the world, they are very much in tune to the workers and the lower class. They, of course, they're all democracies for the most part, so they have power of the people. They don't have a dictatorship or all-powerful king or queen. They have elections. They listen to the people, so there's a democratic part of it. But because they're social democrats, they like programs that will help people who are poor, help people who are towards the other end, or workers, the working class. They definitely have far more social programs than we do here in the United States. We do have some, but they have more than we do. So they do pretty well for having a lot of some of us might call them socialist countries, and that is very much debated. I'm not sure there's a lot of people who agree on what exactly it is. That's a topic for another day. But they do have lots of policies in all the countries in Europe that they have lots of assistance for people, but they do have really high taxes. And that's the downfall, I guess, is if you're going to have a lot of assistance, you got to have a way for people to pay for that. So you have to have lots of taxes to be able to pay for it, right? They can't just come up with money out of nowhere. So one way that they are able to kind of help each other out and band together is this is a map of the European Union, which is basically they got together. They said, "Hey, let's have good trading policies between us, so they don't tax each other when they're trading in between each other's countries. So they help each other out. This is just a way for them to support each other before they support other countries." So, like if we were to buy something from France, we would have to pay a tax. But if Spain wanted to buy something from France, that same thing, they would not pay a tax. Okay. So you'll see all of these Greek countries are the ones who are part of this European Union. Not all of them are, but most of them are. That's for sure. Okay. There are some who are trying to get out right now. The United Kingdom, Great Britain, they're trying to get out currently right now. So, it's not perfect, but oh well. I'm going to show you guys, this is on Apex. This shows you all the some information about Europe that I think is really interesting. So, okay, so here's all the countries, right, by name. Their religion, so you can see we've mostly, it's regional, right? What religion. Now this one has, this is English, so it's kind of, go crazy. Let's see. Oh, this is not language. Sorry, I was looking at language. This is religion. So Protestantism is that orange. That green right here is Roman Catholicism. Orthodox Christianity is right here. Right here, Shia Islam and Sunni Islam, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And Judaism basically is so small, it's basically that little dot right there. So that's religion. Okay, so here's language. So, for the most part, still kind of regional based. We've got the Romance, which is basically like, French and Spanish. Okay, they're all sister languages. Slavic languages here. Germanic languages here. We've got Greek right here. Hungarian all by itself. Turkish right here. Arabic and Iranian. So, and then economics, we'll look at that one. Okay, so as you can see, per color, so the green is the worst, the blue is the best, where they make a lot of money per hour. Green and purple, or I guess turquoise and purple are still pretty good. So those are the ones right there. And then you've got pink is getting kind of low, so that's economics. Okay, here's another one, European Union, where I talked about that. It's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization members. We won't get into that. Okay, subregions. This is actually really important. When we talked about regions in geography, we talked about how it's good to know so you can like identify in your mind where something is at according to, oh, it's in the Middle East, or oh, it's in the the West Indies, whatever it is. Okay, so these are the Nordic countries up here. We have the Baltics, Western Europe, Central Europe, and we've got the Balkans right here, which if you look up the Balkan Pirates, awesome story. Okay, and Eastern Europe here, Anatolia, this is the Anatolian Peninsula, if you remember from earlier, Middle East over here, and North Africa. So that one is pretty good to make sure you look into what those regions are. Okay, so a little bit into the history of European countries. In the eastern side of Europe, so kind of on this side that you guys looked at, there's been a lot of history where there's lots of invasions. They had one ruler who was really powerful. They would own or control lots of territory. There's been a lot of that in the history. On the west side, it's more been smaller areas of land. Now, besides the Roman Catholic Empire or the Holy Roman Empire, basically besides that, there has been a lot of like large empires on the west side. Now, the east side, absolutely. The east side, you'll find more communism, which is more of equality for everybody. You get the same thing no matter who you are. And on the west side, it's more, I guess, capitalist, geared towards that. Many European countries believed in nationalism, and Hungary is a good example, but Germany is the best example because in World War II, they basically the cause of World War II is Germany's like, hey, all of these states around me, they all speak German language. They are, they are basically a Germanic people. Why don't we all just be one country, right? So that's when they started invading and taking on, that land. So they wanted to have an actual Germanic, one unified Germany. So nationalism, the one reason why they had a lot of changes of borders was because of nationalism. But it's kind of a European thing to have this strong sense of nationalism. Like, my country is so great, I love it, and it's awesome, and we should love our country, do whatever it takes for our country to succeed. And that attitude is very prevalent in Europe, especially Eastern and Central Europe. Okay, so map boundaries are always moving around. Their most recent big shuffle in map boundaries is in 1991 when the Cold War ended. This is basically when the Soviet Union disappeared. Let's see if this is one. Okay, so here we have the Soviet Empire, Soviet Union. They were definitely controlled lots of territory. This is what they were at before, and then after, a lot of the countries that they had taken control of, they were no longer allowed to have control over those. So all these countries kind of broke up. All of these were part of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and as soon as the Soviet Union collapsed, all of these countries were now their own separate countries. So most of Soviet Union became Russia right now, and then all these other countries, either they were already around before, or they were just split into a couple extra sections after Soviet Union. Will depend. Not all of them have the same story, but most of them were their own country before Soviet Union took control over them. But that's the most recent one. You have lots of countries right here that, the official status of their country changed. This was in 1991. There's still a border dispute going on. We'll talk about it in the next video with Israel and the surrounding areas. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Last topic that we're going to talk about for this quiz is industrialization. Great Britain was the first to achieve it, which was really great. Great Britain right here was the first one officially, and then it just spread throughout Europe, and they did really good, especially compared to the rest of the country or rest of the world. They were all more ahead than any other country in the world. Europe has the highest standard of living because of industrialization. They have a lot more people who live comfortably than other continents, so they have a higher standard of living. And I'm going to show you guys one last one real quick. Okay, here's the last video on the Industrial Revolution in England.
In the 1700s with the invention of water-powered machinery to spin thread and weave cloth. This led to the development of large textile mills and the growth of manufacturing. The second major innovation was the invention of steam engines in the late 18th century. Factories no longer had to be located by waterways. Instead, production could move to the cities. Steam railroads and steamships connected the cities to customers and raw materials. Industrialization soon spread. The United States, Germany, and other nations used British technology and British money to build their own industrial sectors starting in the early 19th century. Industrialized countries required a greater amount of raw materials and cheap labor, as well as a market for finished goods. All of these could be supplied by overseas colonies. During the 19th century, European nations rapidly expanded their colonial holdings. New technologies that were developed in the 1870s led to an increase in steel production, and hence innovation in the chemical, oil, electrical, and automotive industries in the early 20th century. This wave of industrial development is often referred to as the Second Industrial Revolution.
Okay. So industrialization was really great, gave us a lot of great things, but some problems that came with it were, as you might have heard it mentioned, that you need cheap labor. Not only did people work for horribly low wages, but if you didn't like the conditions that you worked in, which were horrible, um, and you wanted to strike, well, go ahead, quit. I got someone else I can come and pay less than I pay you. So go right ahead. Um, so industrial workers were definitely exploited in these factories and industrialization, especially early on before unions got together and said, we're not going to put up with this anymore, and, kind of push back against the companies. A lot of people think that industrialization is the beginning of the problems that we have for climate change because of all of the pollution that they put into the air, the increasing amount of, just everything that puts pollution in the air basically started in the industrial age. So it kind of did start our climate issues that we have. Let's see. A lot of countries don't put regulations on their emissions and their footprint on uh, our um, our climate because they think that if they have regulations, it's going to be harder for them to compete against other industrialist giants like us in Great Britain. So, and one last topic, the thing that kind of uh, happened right after the Industrial Revolution was the Agricultural Revolution. This was in the 40s. They just made much better machines to grow lots more stuff. So basically, Europe was able to, in the 40s and 50s, they were able to make all the food that they needed for a good long while because of this agricultural revolution. And it improved the quality of life. It helped improve it even more, but it did hurt the environment with the pesticides and all the chemicals that they put in everything. Those happened in the 40s. That's when it all started with the pesticides and fertilizers, um, but it hurt the environment. It's never a perfect answer, right? So that is the end of that quiz.